Let's walk on the wise path.
Imagine if your thoughts could take shape, if the figments of your imagination could step out of your mind and walk alongside you. Sounds like science fiction, right? But what if I told you this isn't just a wild fantasy? For centuries, Tibetan monks have practiced the mysterious art of tulpa creation, bringing their mental constructs to life in ways that blur the line between reality and imagination. And here's the twist. These tulpas don't just stay in your head, they can develop personalities of their own. Intrigued? Let's unravel this ancient mind-bending practice that defies everything we know about reality. The mystique of tulpas. In the world of mystical and spiritual practices, few concepts challenge our understanding of reality as much as the phenomenon of tulpas. Imagine creating an entity purely from your thoughts, so vivid and lifelike that it seems to exist outside your mind. The idea that we, as human beings, can transcend the boundaries of our own consciousness to create something with independent will and personality is a fascinating, albeit unsettling, concept. And yet, this is the essence of the ancient Tibetan practice of tulpa creation. Tulpas are mental constructs, born from the deep recesses of the human mind, crafted through intense focus, meditation, and visualization. In Tibetan Buddhism, monks practice this art to test the limits of their consciousness and deepen their spiritual practices. But the most incredible part of this process isn't just the creation of these entities, it's the idea that they can develop personalities, interact with the world, and in some cases, even act autonomously. This goes far beyond the simple concept of an imaginary friend or a figment of imagination. Tulpas are mental entities that exist with such clarity and detail that their presence feels as real as any person in the physical world. The Tibetan monks who mastered the art of tulpa creation did not take it lightly. Creating a tulpa required a level of discipline, concentration, and mental clarity that few could ever attain. It wasn't about imagining a vague figure or idea. It was about crafting a mental presence with specificity and intention. The monk would spend hours, days, and even weeks visualizing every detail of the tulpa. They would envision its appearance, personality, and voice with such precision that it would begin to take on a life of its own. But this wasn't just a mental exercise. It was a tool for spiritual growth. Monks would use tulpas to demonstrate the mind's power to shape reality, to teach, or even to confront the ego. But tulpas weren't only a means of spiritual development. They also represented the complexity of human consciousness. These entities would sometimes act on their own, independent of their creator's intentions. This raises an important question. What does it mean when something we create starts to act on its own? It challenges the notion of reality itself. What is real? And what is merely a construct of the mind? In many ways, tulpas offer a glimpse into the deep mysteries of human consciousness and the infinite potential of the mind to shape our perceptions of the world around us. The phenomenon of tulpas challenges the rigid boundaries between imagination and reality. While most of us operate within a world that is governed by physical laws and external truths, the practice of tulpa creation opens up the possibility that the mind can transcend these limitations. In the Tibetan tradition, tulpas were seen as not just mental constructs, but as representations of the deeper workings of the mind. They were not isolated or separate from the individual, but were, instead, expressions of a conscious mind that could shape its own reality. This perspective forces us to rethink the very nature of what is real. If we can create something so vivid and lifelike with our minds, does it cease to be imaginary? Or does it blur the lines between the mental and the material? The ancient secrets of tulpa creation. The process of tulpa creation in Tibetan Buddhism is not something that happens overnight. It requires a deep, unwavering commitment to both spiritual practice and mental discipline. The monks who were able to create tulpas were not merely engaging in a simple act of visualization. Rather, they were performing an intricate mental dance that involved concentration, visualization, and intention. These elements were combined in such a way that they transcended ordinary thought, allowing the monk to form a mental entity that seemed to take on a life of its own. The first step in creating a tulpa is visualization. To begin, the monk would need to focus on an image or a form. This could be a simple figure or a complex being, but it had to be vivid and clear. The monk would imagine the tulpa in full detail, what it looked like, what it wore, how it moved, and even how it sounded. This process of mental imagery wasn't passive. The monk had to invest themselves fully into this creation, breathing life into it through sustained mental effort. It wasn't just about visualizing the figure, it was about imbuing it with meaning, with purpose, and with an essence that felt tangible. But the visualization alone wasn't enough. The monk would need to cultivate intention alongside their mental imagery. Intention is a powerful force in Tibetan Buddhism. It is believed that by focusing on a specific goal or purpose, the practitioner can direct the energy of their mind towards that aim. In the case of tulpa creation, the monk would direct their mental energy toward manifesting the tulpa with a specific role, whether as a teacher, a guide, or a companion. This intention would give the tulpa its purpose and meaning, making it more than just an abstract image in the mind. It would become something that could potentially exist independently, separate from the mind of the creator. The final step in the process was dedication. Creating a tulpa wasn't something that could be accomplished in a single meditation session. It required consistent, focused effort over time. The monk would need to continually visualize and reinforce the tulpa's existence, allowing it to become more stable and distinct. Over time, the tulpa would become more than just a mental construct. It would begin to manifest in the world, interacting with its creator, and even with others, if the circumstances allowed. The more the tulpa was nurtured with attention and intention, the more it seemed to take on a life of its own. For the monks who succeeded in creating tulpas, it was considered a remarkable achievement. It demonstrated the power of the mind to transcend the limitations of the material world and shape reality. But more importantly, it was a tool for spiritual growth. By creating these entities, the monks were able to explore the deeper recesses of their own consciousness, challenging their perceptions of self and reality. It wasn't just about creating something supernatural. It was about understanding the nature of the mind and the power it holds to shape the world around us. A modern twist on an ancient art. In today's world, the practice of tulpa creation has been given a modern twist. No longer confined to the quiet meditation halls of Tibetan monasteries, this ancient art has found a new home in the digital age. Enter the world of tulpamancers people, mostly young adults, who create tulpas not as a spiritual tool, but as a means of self-exploration, companionship, and emotional support. These modern practitioners are harnessing the same principles of concentration, visualization, and intention that Tibetan monks used centuries ago. But instead of doing so in secluded monasteries, they're using online forums, social media, and private chat rooms to share their experiences, techniques, and insights. The community of tulpamancers is incredibly diverse, consisting of individuals from all walks of life. Some are artists, some are students, and others are professionals. What they have in common is their desire to understand their own minds better, to confront their fears, and to explore their subconscious. In this modern context, tulpas are no longer viewed purely as spiritual tools. Instead, they are seen as companions beings that exist within the mind and provide emotional support, guidance, or even just a listening ear. The relationship between a tulpamancer and their tulpa can be deeply intimate. These mental creations become confidants, helping their creators process complex emotions, navigate social challenges, or deal with loneliness. In fact, one of the primary motivations for creating a tulpa in the modern world is emotional support. Many tulpamancers have reported that having a tulpa helps them cope with anxiety, depression, and feelings of isolation. By creating a tulpa, these individuals are able to form a deep internal relationship that helps alleviate their emotional struggles. It's like having an imaginary friend who can provide real comfort and guidance in times of need. For many, their tulpa becomes an integral part of their daily life, offering a sense of companionship that is difficult to find in the outside world. But as with any powerful tool, there are risks involved. The process of creating a tulpa is not without its dangers. While many practitioners find their tulpas to be supportive and helpful, there are also reports of tulpas becoming malevolent or even controlling. In some cases, practitioners have struggled to maintain control over their creations, with the tulpa developing its own will and acting independently of the creator's intentions. This brings us back to the question raised by the Tibetan monks. When you create something so vivid and lifelike in your mind, does it cease to be imaginary? And if it takes on a life of its own, what happens when it no longer fits within the boundaries of your control? The modern community of tulpamancers acknowledges these risks, but they approach the practice with a sense of responsibility. Unlike the monks of Tibet, who used tulpas as a means of spiritual growth and understanding, today's tulpamancers are more focused on self-exploration and emotional support. However, the deeper question remains: what happens when these mental entities begin to transcend their intended role? Are we truly in control of our creations, or are we simply unleashing forces that we may not fully understand? The risks and rewards. As with any journey into the unknown, the practice of tulpa creation comes with its fair share of risks. One of the biggest concerns for those who attempt to create a tulpa is the potential for losing control. While the idea of having an entity that exists in your mind might seem like an exciting prospect, the reality is far more complex. Tulpas are not passive creations. They can develop personalities, preferences, and even emotions. This can lead to situations where the tulpa begins to act in ways that its creator did not anticipate. Imagine spending hours or even weeks shaping your tulpa into a kind, helpful companion, only to have it become stubborn, aggressive, or even malicious. This is the warning that Tibetan monks have been offering for centuries. The mind is a powerful tool, and when you create something as vivid as a tulpa, you must be prepared to handle its potential for autonomy. In the case of Alexandra David-Néel, the French explorer who ventured into Tibet in the early 20th century, she experienced firsthand the dangers of creating a tulpa. She created a jovial monk figure, a companion who was meant to be friendly and helpful. But as she continued to focus on her tulpa, it began to change. The monk became more stubborn, aggressive, and difficult to control. It was a startling revelation. The tulpa was no longer a simple figment of her imagination. It had taken on a life of its own, and David-Néel found herself struggling to regain control. This case serves as a stark reminder of the power of the mind to create things that are beyond our control. And it raises an important question: when does a creation become too real? When does the line between imagination and reality become so blurred that it's no longer possible to discern where one ends and the other begins? For David-Néel, the experience was a cautionary tale, one that demonstrated both the incredible potential and the inherent risks of working with the mind in such an intimate and powerful way. But despite the risks, there are significant rewards to be found in the practice of tulpa creation. For many, creating a tulpa is a way to confront their deepest fears and insecurities. It's a means of self-exploration, a way to connect with parts of the psyche that might otherwise remain hidden. And for others, it's simply a way to cope with loneliness, anxiety, or emotional trauma. In this sense, tulpas can serve as powerful tools for healing and personal growth. The practice of tulpa creation is not something to be taken lightly. It requires self-discipline, mental clarity, and an understanding of the psychological risks involved. But for those who are willing to embark on this journey, the rewards can be profound. By creating a tulpa, you are not only exploring the depths of your own mind, you are also gaining insight into the nature of reality itself. After all, what is reality but a projection of our thoughts and beliefs? If we can create something so vivid and lifelike in our minds, what does that say about the world we live in? Science meets mystery. As intriguing as the phenomenon of tulpa creation is, one cannot ignore the scientific implications. What does modern psychology have to say about tulpas? Are they simply a product of the imagination? Or is there something deeper at play here? While the idea of creating mental entities that act independently may seem like pure fantasy, recent research into the nature of the mind suggests that the human brain is capable of far more than we typically realize. Psychologists have long known that the brain has an incredible capacity to create vivid mental imagery. We've all experienced moments where our imagination feels so real that it's almost indistinguishable from reality. This is especially true in cases of vivid dreams, hallucinations, or even during deep states of meditation. The brain is a complex organ capable of generating sensory experiences that can deceive the mind into believing they are real. Could tulpas be an extension of this phenomenon? Could they simply be a byproduct of the mind's remarkable ability to create detailed, lifelike experiences? Some psychologists believe that tulpas are an example of what is known as intentional dissociation. This is a process where the brain creates separate mental identities or subpersonalities, often as a result of intense concentration or stress. These subpersonalities can take on distinct traits, behaviors, and even voices, making them seem like independent entities. From this perspective, tulpas are not supernatural forces, but simply manifestations of the mind's incredible plasticity. They are products of the brain's ability to form coherent subpersonalities, each with its own distinct traits and characteristics. But not everyone is satisfied with this explanation. Some argue that there's more to tulpas than just psychological phenomena. They suggest that tulpas are manifestations of a deeper, more subtle reality, one that transcends the ordinary boundaries of the mind. For these proponents, tulpas are not just the product of mental effort. They are beings that exist on a separate plane of existence, one that is invisible to the ordinary senses, but still real in some sense. In this view, tulpas are not just figments of the imagination, they are real entities that exist independently of the creator's mind. They interact with the world in ways that suggest they have their own consciousness, their own will. This perspective challenges the traditional understanding of reality and suggests that there may be forces at work that are beyond our current understanding. Whether tulpas are the result of psychological mechanisms or represent something more mystical, one thing is certain: they force us to confront the boundaries of what we know about the human mind. And as science continues to explore the mysteries of consciousness, the phenomenon of tulpas may provide valuable insights into the nature of reality itself. The bigger picture. When we look at the phenomenon of tulpas from a broader perspective, it becomes clear that this practice is about more than just creating mental companions or testing the limits of the imagination. It's about understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. If the mind is capable of creating entities so vivid and lifelike, then perhaps it's not as constrained by the physical world as we once thought. The human mind may be far more powerful than we realize, with the potential to shape not only our internal reality, but the world around us as well. In Tibetan Buddhism, the practice of tulpa creation was part of a broader spiritual path. It wasn't just about mastering mental techniques, it was about understanding the nature of existence itself. By creating tulpas, monks were able to explore the boundaries of perception, consciousness, and reality. They were not merely creating imaginary friends, they were challenging the very foundation of what is real. In doing so, they were able to transcend their limited perceptions of the world and gain deeper insights into the interconnected nature of all things. And perhaps that's the lesson we can take from this ancient practice. Reality is not as fixed and objective as we've been taught. It's a projection of the mind, a reflection of our thoughts and beliefs. If we can change our thoughts, we can change our reality. If we can create tulpas in our minds, what else can we create in the world around us? And as we continue to explore these mysteries, we may just unlock secrets that have been lost to time, secrets that reveal the true power of the mind and the limitless possibilities that lie within us all. So, what do you think? Are tulpas just an ancient metaphor for the mind's potential? Or are they something more, something we've yet to fully understand? One thing's for sure, the line between reality and imagination is thinner than we think. If this video sparked your curiosity, leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. And hey, if you're ready to explore the power of your own mind, hit that subscribe button. Let's dive deeper into the mysteries of existence together.